Okay, so I wasn't planning on doing this video. I mean, I hadn't thought about it. But while watching a channel that I keep up on, I don't subscribe to it as in approve it. So I'm not going to say what channel it is. But I'm watching him because he has preached false doctrine. Now, he's preaching a lot of things the apostate churches don't preach correctly. So I commend him for that. But it's been a bit off on some other things. So I've been watching him to see when he goes full-blown false doctrine. And I hope that he doesn't. I hope that he corrects those doctrinal issues. And his practices are a bit sketchy. But we'll see. I'm watching him. What I want to talk with you about today is about the Israelites coming out of Egypt. They took the blood and put it over the post, the doorpost, so that the angel of death, when he came through, would pass over their household and not kill the firstborn. But this blood was from an innocent, spotless lamb. So again, this is a symbol of Jesus' blood. It's a foreshadow. And again, like I said before, it's to show that sin is utterly vicious, that sin requires the blood of the innocent. That is why our governments want to murder unborn babies. How more innocent can you get than the baby before it's come out and started to breathe and think and interact with the world? That is the most innocent that you can get, short of Jesus Christ himself. And so they've already murdered Jesus. So now what are they doing? They're murdering the unborn babies. And they've been doing this for a long time. This blood that was over the doorpost was blood from a perfect and spotless lambkin, small lamb. And that's innocent. That's very innocent. And it had to be shed in order to protect against the punishment, against the evil. Pharaoh and his hard heart. They refused to let God's people go. They refused to obey God. When you refuse to obey God, that is sin. And sin is vicious. And sin will cause blood of the innocent to be shed. So they were saved out of Egypt, and they were happy, and they were joyful, and they were dancing and singing on their way out. People were giving them gold and all kinds of things just to go faster, leave. But none of them really thought that there goes our workforce. Egypt later thought, uh-oh, who's going to build the bricks and take the bricks and build the buildings? And so he gets his people together and starts chasing after him. Well, they get to the Red Sea, and you know the story. Moses holds his staff up. God parts the Red Sea through Moses, parts the Red Sea, brings the water up. It says it was dry ground underneath. God had dried the ground. The Israelites, Hebrews, started walking across, and the waters of the Red Sea are symbolized as their baptism, even though they didn't get wet at all. They went through the waters on either side. Imagine two giant walls of water being held back. Wow. And then here come the Egyptians with their chariots. They're coming down in as the Hebrews are coming up out, and God brings the waters down onto Pharaoh and his army, and they're destroyed. Maybe Pharaoh made it out, I don't know. But the Hebrews made it out onto the other side. But what was on the other side when they were brought out of Egypt with all of its wonderful culture, which they didn't really get to participate in much because they were slaves? And so you, Christian, have been saved out of the world. And you're happy, and you're dancing and singing in your heart. and you're praising God and you're saying, wow, thank you, God. And you're baptized into the death of Christ. And you are now to live in the life of Christ, the resurrection of Christ. But you're entering into the testing, because the desert is where the Hebrews were tested. Read your Bible, it says so. That's where the Hebrews were tested. Go to Hebrews 4 if you want to read about it. It's in other places too, but that's a good place to start. Hebrews 4. The Hebrews were tested in the desert. They'd come out of Egypt. God had brought them out of Egypt, led them with an 80-year-old man and his staff and his brother, who was probably about 80. And they get to the Red Sea. He parts the Red Sea. Can you imagine seeing that? If you saw that, would you believe? Would you believe? Okay, so they believed. They had to. They walked on the dry ground. They had the walls of water on either side. They experienced it. They went through it. Then here comes Pharaoh and his men, and they're on the other side already, up on the other side. And Pharaoh and his men come in, and God causes the waters to fall in on them and kill their enemies, who were way stronger than them, way faster than them, way more skilled at killing people than them. But they made it out, and God destroyed their enemies, who were chasing them from the world. And God will destroy your enemies who chase you from the world if you will but trust Him. He will lead you through the Red Sea. He will baptize you into the death of Christ. And afterwards you are to live in the life of Christ, following in His footsteps, walking as Jesus walked, in obedience to God's commandments. You listen and obey from the heart, obey. But in the desert of testing, you're going to have pressures, you're going to have temptations, you're going to want to grumble, you're going to want to go somewhere else, you're going to want to go off, because they said, hey, what? No, Moses, you brought us out here into the desert to die? You took us from the land of milk and honey and out here to die? And we're wandering, and year after year after year for 40 years. 40 years. They were living in that desert, just wandering, it says. God was taking them around. But Jesus was there. It says that that rock from where they got water was Jesus Christ Himself, and that He followed them. It also says that they died because they didn't mix what they heard with faith. And it says they heard the gospel just as we. It says the same gospel that we hear. They heard the gospel, but they didn't mix it with faith. They didn't combine it with persuasion. They heard it, they understood it, but they did not believe it. And what they mean is when they believe, they behave accordingly. That's how you know if someone is persuaded or not, is if they obey, if they behave according to that persuasion. I've told you before, if I believe, bear with me because I know most of you don't believe it. I'm not saying I believe it, but I'm saying, as an example, if I believed in global warming, climate change, okay? Don't attack me for this, okay? I'm just using it as an example, an extreme example. If I believed in climate change, but I didn't recycle, I just threw all my garbage into a bag and threw it in the trash, and you saw that, would you believe that I believed in climate change? If I'm driving a car alone everywhere I go, and I'm not carpooling, or I'm not taking public transportation, I'm not driving an electric car. Would you believe that I believed in climate change? No, absolutely not. You would call me a what? Starts with an H. A hypocrite. And that's what Christians are who say that they believe in Jesus Christ, but it's obvious that they don't because of their behavior. So that's what happened with the Israelites. They got into the desert. They had not grumbled before then. They hadn't. When they were in Egypt waiting to leave, you didn't hear them grumbling. When they were on the way, you didn't hear them grumbling. Well, I mean, they did complain that, hey, what are we going to do now? Here's the Red Sea, right? They were worried at that point. But their grumbling really started after that amazing miracle that rescued them from their enemies. And they spent a little time afterwards to forget it. In their hearts. In their minds, they remembered it, but in their hearts, they forgot it. And so they began to grumble. Is that what you're doing? Don't do that. The time of testing is now. And you are going to be tested. If you've been saved recently, you need to be baptized. There's no question. Just don't listen to those people out there, those teachers who are saying, oh, you don't have to be baptized. You can't be saved by baptism. If you're not baptized, you're not going to be saved. Even the eunuch, Ethiopian eunuch, recognized that. And he was just reading the Old Testament. And he asked, Philip to explain it to him. And then he baptized him. You need to be baptized. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're not a thief on the cross. You're not nailed to a cross. Therefore, you must be baptized. You have the opportunity to be baptized. Be baptized. If you need someone to baptize you, write a comment. Write a comment, and I will connect you with a church who preaches the gospel. If you're in my part of the world, then either I or someone from the church here can baptize you. If you're in another part of the world, then someone from this church in the U.S. may arrange it for you. If you're in the States, they'll definitely arrange it for you. Write a comment down below if you haven't been baptized and you need to be baptized. After baptism, though, you will be tested. You will be tested. Everyone is tested. So you got to dig in quickly, dig in deeply, get those roots in there so that you can draw that living water out and survive the heat of the sun. I'm talking about the parable of the sower who sowed some seed on the rocky soil. And it sprung up quickly with joy. But because it didn't have deep roots, when the sun came up to the top and the heat came out, it withered. It lost its joy. It lost its life force. And it died. That's what we see time and time again. You must, like here on the channel, we've got 700 videos. I'm not joking. We have 700 videos. And you can pick any of them. Now, some of them are a minute or two. They're like encouragement videos, right? But the ones that are a bit longer than that, anywhere from like 5 minutes on, are going to be a study. And we've got some that are an hour long or even more. Usually I cut it off around an hour and then put it into 2 videos. But we've got compilation videos of series where the compilation is 5 hours long of 11 videos. And 1 hour, 2 hours, etc. Pardon me. So what I'm saying is this, is that you're in the desert, you're going to be tested. You got to be able to manage that properly, which means you've got to have your roots down deep now, as quickly as possible, because that sun is coming up to test you. That heat from the sun will test you. And if you grumble, You cannot grumble. You cannot grumble. No grumbling, no complaining. I'm serious. During this testing time, that's the thing that you're going to want to do, is you're going to want to grumble and complain. Oh, well, you say that women can't wear pants. Well, I don't agree, some woman says. It's usually not the men who disagree with that, although some do. Usually it's the women. You say that women shouldn't wear pants as Christians. I don't agree with that. It's grumbling. Instead, you need to be learning. You need to be watching those videos that talk about that take the scriptures where it talks about that and reads it. And then makes it clearer for you. It just simply restates it in modern English, right? For example. Or explains why he's saying that compared to other scriptures. You need to be learning. That learning is putting the roots down deep. You need to. So stay here on the channel. Do not saturate yourself with all kinds of teachers. Stay with one or two. Do not go around YouTube using Christian videos as a form of entertainment or as a form of distraction, and then call it worship or call it whatever you want. No, you've got to stop that behavior. I've said this before. That's the same as being an alcoholic. I'm serious. Entertainment is a spirit, just like alcohol is spirits. Do you remember the older English word for alcohol was spirits? Because when you drank it, the person appeared to be possessed. They were influenced by other spirits. It's one reason why alcoholism is a bad thing. You've got to stay away. I don't even touch alcohol. And we've done videos on that, so you can go look that up. And the way to find videos is go to the front page of the channel, hit the magnifying glass, and then type in a term. Try to keep it as simple as possible, like alcohol. Not alcoholism, but alcohol, and see what comes up. But the same is true of entertainment. Entertainment is a spirit, and it opens you to be spiritually manipulated. Even if it's Christian oriented, it opens you to be spiritually manipulated, because most Christian teachers out there are not Christian at all. They're pagan Christians. They do not know Jesus Christ. They do not obey God's command. And in Revelation, again and again and again, it says those are the ones who hold to the testimony of Jesus and obey the commands of God, commandments of God. And Jesus said, if you love me, you will keep my commands, John 14:15. Those pagan Christians argue against obeying God. They say, I don't need to obey God to be saved. If you're not going to obey God, you're not going to be saved because you don't love Jesus. You don't. You don't love Jesus. And remember faith, hope, and love? The greatest of these is love. You think you're saved by faith alone? You're a liar. You're deceived. Paul says faith, hope, and love. We're saved by faith, hope, and love. And in Romans, he says that we're saved by hope. In Ephesians, he says we're saved by faith. But in Corinthians, he says, of these three, love is the greatest. And John makes a point that you cannot love God if you do not love your brother. And if you live in love, then the love of God, the charitable love of God, then you are saved. Then you're born again. He says born of God. So see, even John corrects you on that born again thing. You're born of God. You're born from above. If you're just born again, you're a pagan Christian. If you're born of God, you're born from above. Then you truly will be saved. If you hold fast to the faith, hope, and love. Love is the actions of it. Hope is the anticipation, so you don't give up that anticipation. And faith is the persuasion. But the charitable love, that's the action. So don't grumble. Don't grumble. Don't complain. Dig in. Dig in. Watch the videos. Study, study, study. It's best if you're a newer Christian to watch my videos twice. So if you watch a video, watch it the first time through, then wait a little bit, like a few hours or a day, and then watch it again. And it's best to take notes that second time or the first time, but take notes either time. But watch it twice. And I guarantee on that second time watching, you're going to get tons of stuff out of it. May the Lord bless you as you seek Him with all your heart.